I'm Simge Walsh, and I lead Solidworks Early Engagement. We are so excited to kick off our new webinar series, Voices of Impact, Educators Sharing Success. Today's talk is titled Small Shift, Big Gains with Solidworks. And we are honored to have Joshua Bridges here with us, an inspiring educator who had over 200 students earn industry-recognized CAT certifications. Okay. So before we dive in, just to give you a sense of why SolidWorks is such a game changer, overall, we have 7 million users worldwide, 7 million users, and used by 400,000 companies across industries. But of course, the most importantly, we are trusted by 33,000 academic institutions globally. Over 5 million students worldwide learning SolidWorks, and is getting more every day. And more than 600,000 students certified through our programs, which is very important because it helped them for their future with your sport. On top of that, we ran a simple LinkedIn search last year, something anyone can do, and found that over 90% of job postings for engineering and design roles listed SolidWorks experience as a key requirement. So these numbers speak for themselves. What students learn with SolidWorks to really set them up for the future success, with your help for sure. So let's dive in, and please join me in welcoming Joshua Bridges. Hi, Josh. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
It's great to have you today here. So stage is yours. Please go ahead.
All right, awesome. So I want to share a little bit about myself before we get started. So I teach engineering and architectural design at Van Buren Tech. We are a small career tech center in Southwest Michigan. So when you think about Michigan, you always use your hand. So we're right down here. So we have roughly 1,000 students at our center, and there's 28 programs, so ranging from cosmetology to automotive, fire science, machine tool, engineering and architectural design, construction trades. So we've got a lot of different programs for kids to come to. So 1,000 kids, 28 programs. They come from 15 different schools. So we mainly service Van Buren County, but we also have some students from Cass County and some students from Berrien County, which is our local next door counties. So we have a lot of students that come in with varying ranges of experience. I've got some students that come in that have a lot of experience with other CAD softwares. I don't think I've ever had anybody come in with SolidWorks experience. And so that's always interesting. But I've got some kids that come in with no CAD experience at all. They just thought engineering sounded good, and so they come in, that's what they want to get into. But a little bit more about me. I'm also a maker. So I use SolidWorks not only in my day-to-day life as a teacher, but I also use SolidWorks for designing things that I make for my woodworking business. And so do furniture, and I have one business that I do all of her shelving and customer-facing products. And so I do a lot of that kind of stuff as well. So I'm using it, professionally and in my second life. And then I'm a husband and father. So a little bit more about my classes. We have an AM and PM class, 2.5-hour blocks. So I've got the kids for 2.5 hours, and they come in and we have 2.5 hours to try to conquer the world. During that time, I'm teaching both engineering and architectural design. So it's 2 different programs going on simultaneously. But then on top of that, I have second year students in both programs. So we kind of have 4 classes going on at once. A lot of our advanced studies or second year students, they're going to be doing more independent study work. Although there are different times where I pull them in because it might have been something I didn't cover their first year. And so we'll cover that again. But at the beginning, I give the students an introduction to both programs, because some kids come in and they think they really want to be an engineer, and they realize that maybe architecture is their way. And I've had it other ways, where a kid came in, wanted to be an architect, and now he is knocking on the doorstep of SolidWorks expert. And so he's, thought he wanted to be an architect. Now he's going to University of Arizona for mechanical engineering. So it's interesting how it changes.
It is. So, Josh, before you continue, sorry to interrupt, but I really wonder because I know you 4 years and I know you have a love for SolidWorks, and I wonder how you met SolidWorks, and then how you decided to go with SolidWorks for your students.
Oh, great question. So I came to this role, this would be my 5th year. So 4 years ago started. And when I came in, that was the program that was being used. And so the way that our program works with Career and Tech Ed, we have to have an advisory committee. And that advisory committee is made up of business owners, business leaders, universities that are local to us, things like that. And they guide what we use. And so based on their input, SolidWorks is the CAD software that they want to see their students using. And then for architecture, we have a different program because our architecture advisory committee, they use a different program for architecture. So we use SolidWorks, and I've used other programs in the past. This is my 20th year teaching. And so, I've used plenty of different things. I started out with multiple other programs years ago and started doing hand drafting when I first started. So this has definitely been the most user-friendly, and especially with 3D experience, that's a game changer. The fact that they can do that on any device, that has been a huge plus.
It's great to hear from an educator this, you are not working for us and you are saying this. I love this. I love this because it's really, most probably it's really, helpful for you and it makes you smile. This is amazing. Okay, now I'm not going to interrupt you again. Please go ahead.
No problem. Interrupt whenever you need to. Throughout the year, after we do our 2 weeks of kind of introducing the SolidWorks side and the architecture side, they have to do a basic resume and then they apply for a position. And so they get, one of our big things is employability skills, and being able to do a resume and apply for a job and interview for a job. Those are employability. So they have to do that. They sit down with me, I interview them, ask them why, and then, we dive into the perspective areas. So whether it's architecture or engineering. And then once we get in there, we start, and let me see, I'm going to share my screen if that's all right.
Of course, go ahead, please.
Go back.
I mean, I will continue to see your beautiful red t-shirt as I see 3D Experience World 2025. SolidWorks t-shirt is beautiful.
All right, here we go.
Yes.
All right. So after we do the introduction, kind of get everybody in, then we start doing using SolidWorks. So we use it, as a design tool, obviously. But one thing that I stress to the students is you've got to be able to do more than just use SolidWorks. It's not, the CAD is not the end all. Somebody's got to be able to make this. And so they've got to think about that while they're working. And so we'll kind of get into that a little bit. But we start out with some 2D mechanical drawings. So here's some examples of some of what we do. I'm actually revamping almost everything that we're doing for this next school year because there's some of the things that the previous teacher used that I'm done with, that I want to start my own thing. So we just open up the top construction plane and just draw, just to get them familiar with vertical, horizontal, different relations, things like that, making sure the drawing's fully defined. And then once we do that, then we bump into 3D parts. So we take some of those 2D drawings, we extrude them, give them some thickness, that's the basic when we start. And then we start adding different things to it where they've got extra blocks or they've got extra holes, things like that, where it's going to be a little bit more complex. And so I want to get them so that they can understand the different, how the different levels of CAD. You start out, you can do 2D drawings. There's some jobs where that's all you'll ever do is 2D drawings. There's some jobs where you're going to be making 3D parts. And then there's some jobs where I've got a student that's in right now where he goes in and he is working in a local shop and he does a lot of assemblies. So they give him the assembly, they have a part that they need to switch out. And so they switch out the part and then he has to put it into a drawing, and that's all he does. And so, as he progresses, he'll do more, but right now that's what he's doing. And so want them to see the different aspects of the program. Solidworks practice programs or practice problems. These are great. I kind of use these as a checkpoint. Like, you know, the first set is this one is one of the first ones, and that one there's a certain number of steps you should be able to do it, features you should be able to do it in, and then you figure out the mass, and if it's correct, then they can move on. And they're basic problems, and they're very similar to the CSWA. And so in the state of Michigan, the CSWA is recognized as a state credential for mechanical drafting. And so if a student passes the CSWA, they're considered a completer for our program. And so, you know, that's, you know, one of the things that we do towards this next year. We're probably gonna do it in January. And then they can work on the CSWP prep for the second half of the year. But these problems work great kind of preparing them for that. And so I can kind of tailor my teaching to the first set of problems is all going to be basic extrusions. So that's what we do. We do basic extrusions, and then we bump into the next level. And I know they've changed the layout of the parts and stuff, so I can't remember what the second one is, but we move on to those different areas. We also use the Titans of CNC CAD drawings. I'm sure there's people in the audience that are familiar with these. These are also a good checkpoint for students, and it gives them real world skills. They have to look at the parts and realize that there's datum dimensioning, and then some of the different call outs and stuff are not, you know, something that they're used to. And so it's a good stepping stone for the students as they're working, so they can get some experience in different kinds of parts. We also do some advanced drawings. So some of these parts, a lot of these are from Titans of CNC as well, where we can download the part, the student brings it in, and then they can, we've 3D printed some of them to be able to reverse engineer, but then there's some of them that they bring in and they use SolidWorks drawings in order to get the measurements and stuff off of the step files. And then some of the Too Tall Toby challenges. I had one kid last year that his goal was to make it through every single project on Too Tall Toby. And it was just a fun extra thing to do. And so it's kind of one of those, if you've got extra time, let's go in and let's try these parts, because it's different things that somebody else has come up with. And it's a good resource. And then we also use it as a hands-on design tool. And so I do a lot of design challenges. Sometimes the students think it's too much. Sometimes they're like, can we do another? Can we do another? And so this top picture here was a phone stand. And I just gave them a couple days to come up with a design and then figure out if they were going to 3D print it, or if they were going to cut it with a laser, or if they were going to make it out of cardboard. And so each group came up with something, and you know, a lot of them are 3D printed. Some are cardboard. I think there's only one in there that's laser cut, but they used the SolidWorks tool to come up with if it was going to work or not. And then they created those. Down below is a clipboard project they did, where they had to design a clipboard for a left-handed person. And so I'm right-handed, and I grew up in a family of left-handed people. And so I always noticed, like, my parents would always turn the paper sideways to write so they wouldn't smudge, or we had scissors that hurt my hand because they were all left-handed, so they had left-handed scissors. So I said, there's different considerations you have to think about with somebody that's left-handed. And so we had somebody that was left-handed come in, talk to them, give them some ideas. A couple of the students were left-handed as well, but they created a clipboard adapter for left-handed people. But then they also realized that's a small market. So they made it so a lot of them made it universal. And so you had to hold pencils, pens, markers, had to have an adapter for your phone. And so it was interesting what they came up with. And they had to go back, reiterate their designs, and you know, come up with something. And then they 3D printed components to go together. Hands-on experiences. We do a lot of hands-on work. One of the things that my advisory committee wants is students that can not only use CAD, but can also do hands-on work. They don't want somebody that just sits at a computer. And honestly, I would get bored sitting at the computer for 2.5 hours every day. So we do a lot of hands-on things. This top one right here is a whole block. Hold on just a second. As a teacher, I haven't talked much for the last few weeks.
Yes.
this whole block right here, the students, when I went to a local business a few years ago for a professional development, just seeing what they need from us, they said that they get students from our, from University of Michigan, big university. They have students come in from there that don't know what a counter bore is or a countersink. And so they're like, we need to make sure that students understand this. And so that was one thing that I started making sure I instituted even more than I already did. And so the students go in and they have a block that I give them on a drawing, and it's different variations, and they get assigned one of them and they have to draw it. And then we export it to our 3D printer slicing software, cut it in half, and then we 3D print half of it so they can see it. And then they go out to our design lab and they use the taps, they use the counter bores, they use the countersinks, they use all those different tools that they would use in a shop, and they make it. So this year we did it out of wood. This next year, I think we're gonna do it out of plastic, but then they get to see how it actually went together if it worked. I had one kid, one kid this past year, 1/4 20 hole. Before he tapped it, he drilled it with a 1/4 inch drill bit. Realized, shoot, can't tap it now. So, they have to realize that. And so that was an interesting hands-on project for him. This other one, this was a kid, one of my, we call him my nephew, real good family friend. He was in my summer camp last year, and Ben Newble was doing a project. He was doing a presentation a couple years ago at 3D Experience, and was talking about chocolate molds. And so we did this chocolate mold. And so they designed something. We actually did these in Solidworks apps for kids. And then we 3D printed those. I had my students do it at the end of the year this year just to try it out with Solidworks, and worked even better than the apps for kids. But we 3D printed it, pushed it into brown sugar, poured the chocolate, and they had a little chocolate treat. And so gave that to them right before they left, so I didn't have to deal with them. And then other hands-on things. This was a student came in last year at the beginning of the year, and he had played Xbox or PlayStation, wanted a controller stand that held 4 controllers, and then held his headphones and other components. And so he designed this, kind of reverse engineering, but then adding on to it and creating his own thing. And so those hands-on experiences. Reverse engineering. So the students do a number of reverse engineering things. This bottom one here, this is a lamp. We have a couple of these in my classroom, and we took one apart, and the students draw every component and then they put it together. And so they get that practice. 3D printing and laser cutting. That's another thing that we do. The students, by the end of the year, most of them are very proficient in either 3D printing or laser cutting or both, where they can come in and they know exactly every single setting they have to do, and then they can send something to the printer and have something the next day. And so we do a lot of that stuff. And then holiday projects. This is one thing that at Christmas time, the holidays, really gets them excited. And I'm always looking for things that are going to kind of capture them and get them excited to do things. So we always have a class Christmas tree. And I tell everybody, if you don't celebrate Christmas, that's fine. Just come up with something that we can, celebrate. And so, we got a snowman here, Death Star. And then this guy, he loves basketball. And so he made a basketball backboard with his name on it. And then he made the rim, and he really wanted to do the net. And I said, well, you're gonna have to figure that out. So he did some research and figured out how to draw the net and made the net. It turned out perfect. And so just, interesting things. And he had to go find different ways to do it. Same thing with these Christmas trees. We have these lighted bases that we will set up, and then the students will 3D printed something that was a Christmas tree to put on top that you could see the light through. And so some of them did just a wrap, some of them did the flex tool, multiple different, iterations they came up with. And they did cookie cutters. Those are always fun. So some best practices. So some of the things that I do, I always start out with the basics. So I always, even if kids come in, I've had kids come in that are like, oh, I did, this engineering class in my high school, and I know everything. And usually those kids are the ones that don't pay attention to detail because they know everything. And so I go right back to the beginning, and they have to start from scratch, and they have to do everything that everybody else does. And so start with the basics, and then do fun things. So we've got, my architects usually do a gingerbread house. And so that's a fun one for them. I found at the makers area at 3D Experience last year, they had little mini gingerbread houses that they 3D printed. And that's something we might do this year with my engineering students. And so come up with a way to make those. So that was a fun one. And then hands-on experiences are very important. I've went through times where, like when I first started here, we were doing, it was the year after the pandemic, and we couldn't do a whole lot of engaging with each other. And so the students did a lot of just sitting there working on the computers by themselves. And so that year wasn't super engaging. Where since then we do these hands-on experiences and projects all the time, and they love them. They love to be able to do something different rather than just a drawing that I handed them. And then design challenges. So we've got big design challenges. This past year we did one in May, and it wrapped up in May. They had to design some furniture for a preschool program. And so they had to go over to our preschool. They interviewed the kids, talked to them, got ideas, and then they designed a piece of furniture for them. And so they had to get height, like how tall is a preschooler? So they had to figure that out. And then they designed different things, and then they actually made them, which was interesting because some of the kids have never, like they've used 3D printers, they might have used our laser, but there's a few of the kids that have never used like a saw or a drill. And so having them out there working on those things, they're like, this is my first time ever doing this. And so they were amazed that they could do that. And then in and out of class competitions are huge. We do one in March. We go to a college across the state. They got a competition that we go to. But then this year we did a March Cadness competition. And so we set up I got it right here. We set up a bracket for all my students. They had to do an initial drawing, and we timed it, and then we figured out accuracy and how quickly they did it. And then they got seated in the bracket. And then they competed against another person with the exact same drawing. And then people got knocked out one by one until we finally had Josh here was the champion. But we came in, and you notice this was the finals. We had the lights off. We had spotlights on them. We had disco lights going. We had all kinds of crazy stuff going just to like bring some emphasis to, the fun of the competition.
This is amazing. I want to be your student. Point. This is amazing. I mean, you are a very inspirational person, and you help them to make their dream into reality. Of course, Solidworks is there, but also your ideas is very inspiring. So I feel like I felt like I need to tell you I want to be the student.
And then I also encourage them to use Solidworks and then my Solidworks. So as we're going through, like if they've got something that, like I record a lot of my lessons and then post them so they can watch them back. But if there's something that they're like, I don't get this, go check YouTube, go check that out. See if you can find something, check out my Solidworks. There's always things on there that are helpful. And then I also had students, we went to a technical summit for the West Michigan Lakeshore Solidworks user group last year. And I took a small group there, and they came back and they're like, oh my gosh, did you know you could do this? Did you know you could do this? Did you know? In the car, that's all they talked about was all these different little tips and tricks they learned. And so I had a few of them go through and create videos on those different tips and tricks so that other people could go back and watch them. Fun thing, this girl right here on the far right, she came into my class, limited English, and she, I didn't know anything about her, just knew that she had some limited English. She's from a small school. She rocked out every single thing we did. She was our first person that passed all of the Titans of CNC certifications. She got her CSWA. She got her additive manufacturing. She kept coming back for other things after her school was done. She was a senior. she got done early. She kept coming back for extra work. And she was so excited. And then I found out she was the valedictorian for her school too. So I was like just mind blown with how amazing she did this year.
Amazing.
And then a big thing is to celebrate the students. So whenever anybody passes their certification test, this is a sampling of some of the kids. I had a bunch more this year that passed it, but I take their picture. I've gotten some swag to give them. This year I had my reseller gave me some Rubik's cubes. And so after every kid passed the certification test, I gave them a Rubik's cube and a Solidworks sticker and, candy bar, like just different things to get them excited about it. And then show them different prospects that are available with having that certification. And then 3D experience. So up to this point, I've talked about SolidWorks exclusively, but we do use 3D experience as well. So this is exciting. The new teacher role is active in 3D experience. So it's like a learning management system where you can set up your classes, you can set up assignments, students turn things in, you can check it in there, you can provide videos, things like that for students. I was excited. I was on some of the beta testing with this earlier this school year, and gave some feedback. My students gave some feedback at the summit. And so they've got a lot of changes they've done, and I'm excited to get in and start using this. I just found it active in our system the other day. And so I've got to go in and start getting it set up. I'm gonna skip that one for now. And then the practice problems being on the platform. You have access to the SolidWorks 3D CAD and then the XDesign curriculum that's in there. And it takes the practice problems and there's videos for each one. And there's guides and different resources for each of those problems. And then that way you've got a kid that's struggling, that needs some extra help, that, can't get it. Well, go in and watch this video. This video will help you. And it's neat because they've got it for SolidWorks and XDesign. And this year, since we're going to have, in the past, we've had the 3D experience for some of our students, where this year we're going to have it for everybody. And so I'm actually going to be bouncing back and forth. So they're going to start out with SolidWorks for some problems, and then they're going to go to XDesign, and they're going to go back to SolidWorks, and then back to XDesign. So we're going to be going back and forth. And then at some point, I'm going to tell them that they can pick which one they want to use. If they're more comfortable using SolidWorks, they can use SolidWorks. If they're going to be doing a lot of work at home, they might want to use XDesign for, a certain problem. But we're going to kind of go back and forth to get them that experience of, the online version as well as the desktop version. And then let me see. Some of this was from my presentation at 3D Experience. So one thing that we do that excites them is when they can use, they can render things. They can see what their stuff actually looks like, because it's one thing to go through and just, here's a drawing, go ahead and make it. But when they can create something and they can render it and they can look like a real life thing, that gets them really excited. So we use Visualize and then also 3D Excite to create renders. Another thing that I found is great is participate in a SWGN event. So when we went to the technical summit, I can't believe how many of them were so excited about what they learned there. And so this next year, I'm going to take all my students to it. And so I've already talked to the organizers, and we're kind of planning that out, how it's going to work. Participate in challenges. So, if there's a design challenge, I'm actually working. One of my goals this next school year is to have a couple bracket kind of competitions, like what we did with the educators SolidWorks user group that I lead. And so have it put out there for anybody to participate, and they can come in and they can have their students participate in that challenge. And then another thing that I do that excites them is when I ask them for ideas, like, hey, what do you think would be a good thing to work on? And they're like, oh, what about this? And Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Let's try that. Let's see how it works. This past school year, I had a couple girls come up and they said, can we make a haunted house? And I was like, what are you talking about? They wanted to recreate houses from horror movies. And so they went in their architectural software and they did that. So my second year engineering students, they went through and recreated different props from movies. And so I had one kid that recreated um, the vacuum thing from Ghostbusters that sucks up the ghosts. He recreated that in SolidWorks and we 3D printed a model of it. And so had another kid that created the cookie spider from Despicable Me. And so just different things that get them excited. And then this year I started doing a to-do board. So I reached out to different people in our organization, said, hey, if you've got something that you need done, tell me what it is, and then I'll see if we can do it. And so I've done that and gotten a lot of really good feedback. I've had some different people that have been like, oh, we need this for our classroom. Can you do this? And so they've worked on designs and 3D prints and things like that for other people as well. And so a lot of different things that we do. Bringing up new users. So career camps, we do that in the summertime. Usually we do a week-long career camp. SolidWorks apps for kids. That's one that we visited a classroom right before Halloween this year. Here's a picture of a couple of my students with the kids, and they designed ghosts and goblins using SolidWorks apps for kids. And then we came back and here's some 3D prints of their designs that they came up with. And we 3D printed it, took it back to the school, and then the kids painted them and made them nice. And then finally, the Titans kids, we're doing an after school program this fall where kids will they'll come to my class for one day and we'll design a couple days, I guess. They'll design a part from the Titans of CNC kids library, and then they'll go to our machine tool class and they'll actually machine the part. And so they'll learn how to use CAD, and then they'll learn how to use some machining software as well and actually make that to take home. And so try to do as much as I can to get the kids excited, because going to school is never fun. I've got 2 teenagers and a 7-year-old at home, and none of them are like, I'm excited to go to school. So I know that that's something that they're not excited. So I'm sure that my students aren't either. So I always try to get my students excited and get them engaged with what we're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like, even when I'm listening to you, I'm I'm not young to be a student, but I wish I could be. It's really amazing, and I would like to tell you, as SolidWorks, we are super lucky to have a teacher like you and many of educators. I'm sure we have many of them on this call today, who is doing this incredible things for the students. So I'm super happy. It said that we have a couple questions for you, Josh.
Okay.
So the one of them is about the the learning SolidWorks, how it impact their future. It's like, have you seen increased interest in STEM or engineering careers as a result of students learning SolidWorks?
I have. I've got some students that have come in, and they're wanting to. They think that they want to go into engineering, and by the time they're done, they're like, oh my gosh, this is definitely what I want to do. I had one student come in, it would have been 3 years ago. He came in and did architecture his first year, and he did really well at architecture. But then he was like, he's sitting next to one of the students using SolidWorks every day. And he was like, I want to do that instead. So the second year he came back, he was a first year student again. He used SolidWorks, and now he's at Michigan Tech studying engineering. And like with our career camp, when we get kids coming in for the career camp, they're going into 6th grade, 7th grade, or going out of 6th grade, 7th grade, or 8th grade. So they're middle school kids. And they come in and they're super excited about by the time we're done with that week, they're like, oh my gosh, can I take this class? I'm like, well, you got to wait because our students are 11th and 12th grade only. And so I'm like, you got to wait for a couple years, but I'm excited to see you in a few years. So that's been exciting. This year was my first year that I've gotten a number of kids like placed out after the school year's ended. I've got one student who got an internship. We had a job fair. He applied for a job, and he's the one that's using SolidWorks and doing assemblies and drawings. Another student who got a full-time job working at a local shop, and he's their SolidWorks designer. And he was telling me the other day he had a call with oh my gosh, the Blue Origin. He had a call with he was on a call with Blue Origin because they design fixtures and stuff for them. And so he was like, it was super cool. I was on a call with them. And so
of course it is.
so he's doing that. I got a couple other students that are placed that are working, doing summer jobs at another shop that does, that makes fire trucks. And so it's been interesting to see where things have gone. And so
Yeah, and also proud moments anytime when students do that. It's great. So other question, what advice would you give to educators who want to start teaching SolidWorks? Enter the experience platform for sure, because you just show us the teacher app. It's very exciting for us, but I would like to hear from you as an educator.
Yeah. I would say, like I said earlier, start out basic. Get the kids in and get them using the software. Get them understanding the basics on how to create just something easy, because having that foundation will make it so much better for them going forward. My first year here, I had some students that had the program the year before, and that year was a hybrid year. So they came in 2 days a week or 3 days a week, and then they were at home 2 days a week. And some of those students, they did not have, by the end of the year, they're like, the first year students know more than we do. And it's because they didn't have that base underneath them of understanding how to do the basics in SolidWorks. And so I would say get started with the basics. Definitely find those practice problems and have them do those, because those are great for the exam, and they are quality drawings.
Excellent, excellent. So I mean, it's not a question, but I totally agree with Annette Norris. And then says, Josh, congratulations, you are amazing. So another question from Christy McKibben, and she's asking, where did you get SolidWorks education poster?
So if you're talking about the big banner, I reached out to my reseller. And so, and my reseller was the person that was up top that said, congratulations. And so thank you, Annette. That poster's been used in a lot of pictures.
Amazing. So, okay, another question from Christy. Is the practice problems on 3D experience under a certain spot?
I'm going to go back and I'll share that in the chat, where those are, because I linked them in the video, in my design, I think, or my presentation. So I will work on that and put that in there. Was there another one?
Yes, we have many questions actually.
Oh.
So yes, other question is from Miguel Garcia. And hello, Josh. I joined a little late, so you may have mentioned this, but sorry, when students successfully complete the Titan building blocks or rocket part models, is there a certificate they can download to add to their portfolio?
I am reaching out to them actually to try to get that, because right now, like my students for their portfolio, they put in all 10 if they do the first 10 building blocks and then 10 of the rocket parts. So they have a pretty thick portfolio. And so I'm going to reach out to them, and I've kind of thrown it out before. And so I'm going to hopefully bring it up again and get something where, it might be something that we have to print and then add their names to it or something. But I'm going to see if I can get something for that.
Excellent. And one of our famous user group leader, Joe Lance, has a question for you. And
Oh, hi,
Joyce,
Joe.
yes, and he is asking, how do you get the kids to understand the magnitude of what they're achieving?
One big thing is going out and seeing some of the things in the real world. We went every other year. We go to IMTS, and so it's the International Machine Tool show, and that's in Chicago, and it's a massive show, and they can see a lot of different tools and stuff there, so they can see like, wow, this is amazing, like this is the kind of stuff that I could be using. um, Try to get connected with industry, have people come in and talk to them, and have them explain like, hey, here's some options you got for after school. When we do our design challenges, I try to get people to come in and judge. And this past year we did the clipboard one. I had a woman come in who is on my advisory committee, who used to design sets for Hollywood, and she works at a local business, and she came in and did the judging, and then she explained to the students like, this is amazing stuff, like you guys are like top notch, like I'm excited to see where you go. And get people in to show them this is where you're going. We actually had Joe come in before the technical summit, and he talked to them too, so that was awesome. They still talk about Joe to this day. I ran into a couple of them at a graduation party, and they were talking about Joe because he's so cool.
Very true, very true. And actually, hold on, there are more questions. It's
And I just posted in the chat, I just posted the link to the new practice problems. So those are both in there. Took me a
okay,
second.
so thank you very much. Thank you. And then, more congratulations are coming for you. They say not a question, but want to say it's pretty impressive what both Joshua Bridges and Gabe Coyers have going on with their design and machine tool programs. I totally agree with all congratulations. These are amazing. Well,
Thank you.
Josh, I mean, I really don't want to say bye because I mean it's an amazing conversation. I wasn't expecting to be good. I mean this is really wonderful what you are showing. It's very inspiring, and I'm happy SolidWorks is helping you during this journey. Uh, so we can see clearly your passion about it. So this is wonderful. Thank you very much. And
Mhm.
I know you are also very active on LinkedIn. So
Mhm.
please follow him, George. He's doing great sharing posts on LinkedIn. And we are also in LinkedIn as well. So 3D Experience EDU. If you continue to follow us, you will see we will organize this kind of webinars in the future as well. We will continue to hear from educators why they choose SolidWorks and why they believe it's the best solution for their students.